What is up, and welcome back to another episode of So There's That. I'm your hostess, doing the mostest, Kiowa and Chee, and we are here with the season 3 premiere of Dark Winds, only on AMC and AMC Plus. Now, I have been seeing Dark Winds like popping up on Netflix, and I only saw it pop up on Netflix after the whole merger and bringing some AMC shows to Netflix with the deal that The Ones Who Lived helmed, okay? And I saw on the cover Zahn McClarnon. Now, if you are unfamiliar with Zahn McClarnon, like over his 3-decade career, he's always been advocating for indigenous people's stories, Navajo stories in film, outside of film, and just continuing that narrative so that people do not forget like where it came from. So if you're like currently familiar with Lily Gladstone, basically he was doing all of the things before we were ever introduced to Lily Gladstone. If you don't know him by face, though, for those of you who just aren't into film and television and stuff like me or like other film buffs, but you're like into anime or like adult animation and stuff like that, he is the voice of Olrox on Castlevania Nocturne, and those same stories and Olrox's background of being indigenous from the Americas, constantly talking about his people wanting to go home, colonization, and the history of that infused in his story as a vampire. So of course it's only right that he is the lead of a show about crime and everything that's going on in Navajo lands. They also go over different laws and stuff. I know in season 1, it was season 1 or season 2, but I want to say for sure season 1, we talked about the sterilization of Navajo women. Once they gave birth to one child, there were some unethical procedures being done without their consent to prevent them from having other children. So in the show, we're talking about crime, we're talking about mystery, we're talking about cultural, what's the word? Like spirituality and cultural lore. All of that is like infused in, you know, fighting crime and the forces of evil. And so with that, it's pretty unique in a way because we have so many cop shows, so many medical shows, so many other things, but none that are specifically centered around indigenous peoples. Not a lot that I know of. So that's what drew me to Dark Winds. Now, once I got there, I was kind of upset that season 1 and season 2 only had 6 episodes, but season 3 they added on 2 more episodes, so we're going to be getting 8 episodes, 8 hours of mystery, thriller, crime. Okay, we're going to be getting some more. We're going to need so many medicine packs. Okay, we need to ward off all of these evil spirits. We need to protect ourselves, okay, because it's crazy this season. So just to quickly catch y'all up, I already kind of talked about in season 1, we dealt with like some of the things as far as sterilization of Navajo women, but we were also dealing with the main character, Lieutenant Joe Leaphorn, and his wife Emma, still recovering from the death of their son while going through like all of these different crimes and trying to figure out this young girl who assaulted her and impregnated her, and just trying to figure out like why these people were dying or mysteriously getting poisoned and stuff like that. Then we lead into season 2, where the big thing about season 2 was Leaphorn finally got a lead. Just following some other case, he ended up getting a lead on the person who was responsible for blowing up the mine and ended up killing his son. So we end season 2 with all of that being reconciled, okay? We already know that storylines, sometimes they come back to bite you, which leads us into season 3. So I'm gonna do my little spiel, give all the information, the log line, that, this, that, and the third, and then we're going to go over what happened in season 3, episode 1 of Dark Winds. Now, just a reminder, I stopped doing step by step every single moment for a lot of these things. So there's gonna be some stuff that you watch that I don't talk about here. And you know, it's just to keep the mystery, you know what I'm saying? We gotta keep it cute, we gotta keep it mysterious. But really just wanting to focus on some of the major themes and, you know, draw you in, pull you in just a little bit closer so that you can watch this every week. And a quick reminder, I will be live tweeting this every Sunday, so make sure you find me on Twitter at Chee. So huge introduction, but let's get into it. So season 3 episode 1, I am so sorry with these pronunciations. Every episode is titled in its Navajo language with the English translation next to it. So I'm gonna do my best, and I'm gonna make sure I continue to do like research on some of the pronunciations, just so I'm not accidentally offending any indigenous peoples. So the name of season 3 episode 1 is Yeitso, which means big monster. So the log line for this episode: Lieutenant Joe Leaphorn and Sergeant Jim Chee investigate the disappearance of a Navajo boy. Manuelito makes a sinister discovery while adjusting to life on Border Patrol, and an FBI agent is in town to investigate the death of the man who killed Leaphorn's son. Okay, like I said, everything is not over. The genre is drama and mystery, specifically like cop drama. The writer for this episode are John Wirth and Stephen Paul Judd. The director is Chris Eyre. The director of photography is Paul Elliott. For music, we have Kevin Kiner, Sean Kiner, and Deana Kiner. And the cast includes Zahn McClarnon as Lieutenant Joe Leaphorn, Jessica Matten as Bernadette Manuelito, Kiowa Gordon as Jim Chee, Deanna Taushi Allison as Emma Leaphorn, Joe's wife, and A. Martinez as Sheriff Gordo Sena, or Gordo. So just to let y'all know, from here on out, I will be referring to Lieutenant Leaphorn as Leaphorn. I'll be referring to Bernadette Manuelito as Bernadette or Bernie. I'll be referring to Jim Chee as Chee, and Emma Leaphorn as Emma, and Gordo Sena as Gordo. Alright, so boom, we open it up and we're hitting like a 7 days earlier. So already this season is leading up to the fact that something is happening and we're going back to 0 day. So on 0 day, Leaphorn gets called out by Gordo to investigate some missing teens or something sinister going on. So one of the teens' name is George and the other one is named Ernesto. Now apparently they didn't go home that night, which is why the call got called out, and they're high school students, so minors. But after doing some calling around, Gordo called the school and George ended up checking in the school that morning, but nobody has seen nor heard of Ernesto at all. They're in like the Navajo desert area, and a lot of stuff takes place in there. I know it kind of like borders on like Mexico and stuff where they are too. So just think of like vast, like reddish, sandy brown lands, red rocks, stuff like that. And so they find the bicycles and stuff there, and they see some blood on the bikes and these weird like slash marks and stuff like that. And so already it's like, okay, we need to figure out what George knows, and we need to figure out where Ernesto is, because these don't look like, oh, I fell down on my bike and these like marks ended up happening. It looks like it was something very deliberate, especially when we end up seeing specks of blood on the bike. Chee brings up like this lore of La Llorona. So again, this is relevant because they are bordered on Mexico, and if you haven't seen that movie, you need to watch that movie. La Llorona is one of the scariest movies I've ever seen in my life. I love it so much. But Gordo is like, okay, that would make sense, but does this mythical creature know how to drive a red pickup truck? Because a witness said that they saw a red pickup truck at the site. So right now, this is all the information that we have to go on, and the first order of business is to get to George and figure out what happened. We get to the school, and George is sitting in detention, desperately and inconspicuously trying to scrape dried blood off of his shoes. Now, first off, George, you're the only one in detention. You're sitting right in front of this teacher's face. She can see you, bro. She can see you. When she ends up getting a phone call, and it's Chee and Leaphorn coming up to the school. So they end up seeing him at his locker, and they call out to him, but of course he runs. Sir, you couldn't look more guilty if you tried. And George ends up in the wind. So at this point, we don't know where George is. We don't know where Ernesto is. And now we're just starting straight from scratch. Meanwhile, so Bernie was having some difficulties in the last season, and so she no longer works directly underneath Leaphorn anymore. She works at Border Patrol, and so she's out just doing her rounds just at the border when she sees this weird white van. She calls it in, but she gets out because it looks real suspicious. So she goes around the back. She doesn't see anybody, but in the brush she sees a woman and a little girl running off in the distance. So she's chasing after them because she's trying to figure out like what the hell is going on. They're in a little bit of a standoff. The lady ends up pointing a gun at Bernie, and Bernie's like, listen, I come in peace. I'm gonna put my gun down. I'm letting you know, like, everything is cool. I'm just trying to figure out like what is going on. So she ends up getting to the point where she's de-escalating it enough to get close to the mom, and then she ends up tackling her. But in this, there's just mass panic. The mom is screaming. She's not speaking no English. The daughter doesn't speak any English, but the daughter is like trying to jump on Bernie's back. And what I really love about Bernie is she is an excellent cop, an excellent shot, has amazing instincts. But one of the things that I love so much about her character is her ability to have empathy, sympathy, and de-escalate situations, even in the height of adrenaline. So as she's wrestling the mom and trying to get the cuffs on her, and the daughter is like jumping on her and just kind of like preventing her from doing this, she kind of just takes a moment. She looks at the daughter and she tells her, you know, calm down, everything is okay, friend. And she stops trying to arrest the mom, but she still has her hand on her, but she's just trying to get everybody to understand, like, I'm not trying to hurt you. And so I just really love how in this moment Bernie is recognizing that they are afraid and not necessarily a threat to her. And when we see a lot of these other cop shows, you know, they will misread fear and people who act out in fear as an act of violence against them, and all de-escalation tactics go out of the window. So her instincts as a police officer, literally 10 out of 10, couldn't ask for anything more. So she stands the lady up, and they end up walking back. She's like, okay, we just need to get y'all situated. And she walks back to go with her gun, and her gun belt is sitting empty. There's no gun there, and some bullets are missing. And in the distance, that white van that she ended up pulling up on initially is driving off in the distance. Bernie. I get, like, she wasn't expecting anybody to be out there, especially because the van was empty. But, like, I guess in this situation, what else could she have done? I can't even imagine what else she could have done, because the gun wasn't far from where she was in the first place. But whoever it was that drove off definitely took that opportunity from when she was trying to just subdue the woman and her child to sneak in there, get it, and then like drive away. So she ends up reporting it to her superiors, but I didn't catch his name. I'm gonna have to look it up. But he was just kind of like brushing it off. He's like, okay, well, cool, thanks for turning them in. We finna send them back to Mexico, and like, it is what it is. And so she's just like, well, I want to question them. I need to figure out like what's going on, because I think that they were being trafficked. And he's like, listen, you about to let this go. You're not looking into it any further. Okay, sweetheart. So he's using like condescending language and very sexist language to make her feel foolish as if she has no right or reason to investigate this any further. So she just kind of like sucks it up and she ends up leaving. Back at the investigation into finding George and Ernesto, Leaphorn and Chee goes over to Shorty's house. So Shorty is George's dad, and they're trying to figure out, did he come home or anything like that. But it looked like Shorty and Chee like got a little beef. We end up finding out that Shorty used to bully Chee in high school. But get this, y'all, Chee's mama was dating Shorty's dad, and Shorty's dad was abusive to Chee's mom. So, you know, when Chee pull up, you know what? Anything Shorty says, go ahead and knock him out. Like, you deserve to punch him in the face on sight every time that you see him. Like, I don't know. I'm with it. I'm with you, Chee. I'm with you. But Leaphorn is like, listen, you're going to have to leave all of it to the side because we need to figure out what's going on. So he ends up finding George's little brother in this barn area, and I believe his brother's name is Cecil. So he goes up to Cecil and he's telling him like, hey, George might be in danger, so I'm just trying to get any information. You know, brothers talk, maybe he said something to you. And Cecil tells Leaphorn that George came by that morning and was like super panicked and just frantic, and he said that a monster was after him. That night, okay, so while in town, Leaphorn ended up seeing a coyote in a road. Now, again, let's go back to just how spiritual and how spiritually connected Navajo peoples are, indigenous peoples are, just different people in Africa, Haiti, just a lot of like Caribbean and indigenous people's culture is very connected to spirituality, the meaning of animal crossings. What does the deer mean? What does the coyote mean? What does the dead fish mean? And stuff like that. And so kind of since this encounter, Leaphorn is not sleeping well at night at all. And on this particular night, he's kind of having like a fit in his sleep. So he gets up, he's going into the kitchen to try to like get some water, just kind of like figure out like what's going on, just catch his bearings. But he's seeing like this little buzzing noise and all of these little ants crawling all over the place. And it's kind of like some hallucinations when the horses start acting a fool outside. So he goes out with his gun because, hello. And as he's walking around, he ends up seeing this dark figure with like a silver plated skeleton face just kind of like off in the brush somewhere. And at that moment, Emma calls out to him like, you know, what are you doing outside? So for me, I'm wondering like, did she hear the horses or were the horses only in his head? Because her even asking like, why are you out here? You would have heard those horses going crazy. But it seems like there's a disconnect. So this could just be more of a hallucination in whatever sinister is going on with Leaphorn. Meanwhile, back at border control and stuff like that, Bernie is still confused on why her boss won't let her investigate. So she sneaks into the border patrol station to try to just get more information from the mom and the daughter. Again, they don't speak a lick of English. And Bernie's Spanish only goes but so far. But the mom's Spanish seems more like the old tongue than current day Spanish that we know of, because when the daughter is speaking, she's speaking Spanish that at least I recognize. But when the mom is speaking, it's almost like a blend between Spanish and the Navajo language. So it gives, I mean, I don't know that I've ever heard them speak it, but it just gives like she's speaking more like Mayan language or the Incas or Aztec people's language infused with the colonizer language of like, you know, Spanish. But the daughter is trying to break down this information as simple as possible, because Bernie is, you know, speaking some type of Spanish, you know, what did she say? Like, estás corriendo, like, you know, you were running, you know, ¿quién? You know, who were you running from? So she's giving out like little words, and the daughter ends up drawing this picture, and she's like, I don't understand, like, what does this mean? And the daughter says, big. Now, the name of this episode is Yaitzo, which means big monster. Are we talking about the same person? on 2 different cases. Like, what are we doing? 1, 2. I think it's very clever that the title of the episode shows up in 2 different cases, like as separate words. George saying that he's running from a monster, and the daughter saying that what this drawing is big. So I really like it. It could be cheesy, it could be corny, but I think it's very clever and it fits the dynamics of like the cases and stuff that they've been dealing with for the past couple of seasons. The next day, Leaphorn goes back to Cecil, and he's just trying to figure out like, what more information do you know? What are some of their common hangout spots? Like anything that you know will help. And Cecil points him in the direction of this like archaeologist dig spot. So him and who ends up going up there? Him and Gordo, I believe. Yes. No. I'm confusing this. Who is this? Boom, 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 boom. Okay. So, yeah. Chee, I believe, and Leaphorn. I don't know why I didn't write this down. But they end up going over to the archaeologist spot. And this lady ends up showing up. And she's like, yeah, you know, they both worked for me and Ronaldo. This is Ronaldo's trailer, but he's not here. I just got back today. He gets back tomorrow. So they're like, okay, what was going on? And she was like, they've been really good. They've been a great help. But the last time that they were here, they got into a fight with each other and it compromised the dig site. So Ronaldo told them, don't come back anymore. So they're just like, okay, well, when he gets back, let us know. Or if you hear anything about, you know, from the boys, let us know. I'm not trusting this ma'am though. I'm not trusting this. And the reason I'm not trusting it is because, hello, season 1, there was a whole like archaeologist dig spot, mine, etc. whole little thing going on with like crooked FBI agents that got his son killed. So no, I'm not trusting it. I'm not trusting it. And she was saying that they were trying to find like connections between Navajo land and some other indigenous people from Mexico. So they're trying to look up artifacts and stuff that will connect both of the cultures and both of the histories, which, yeah, I believe is true. But at this juncture, I'm feeling like the kids maybe saw something that Ronaldo and this lady didn't want to get out, and I truly feel like their life is in danger. At this time, Gordo ends up contacting Leaphorn with the lead on where at least one of them are. So Chee goes back to the station, and Leaphorn meets Gordo up on like a mountainside. And he's like, somebody else said that they saw a red truck over here, but it's so weird because these tire track marks stop right here. So they're kind of walking like in the brush and everything like that when Leaphorn sees blood stains on the ground. And so as they're kind of like following the blood stains, they see like one of those, y'all know them silver big tunnel thingies that's like inside of the earth so that you could pass through, or like water passes through. I don't know if they call it a ravine or anything like that, but it's like that tin thing. It looks like a canned goods, but like super giant, or like a wormhole. And so Leaphorn's like, okay, you go in from one side, I'm gonna go in from another side. As they approach the openings, obviously there is a foul odor coming from in there. So they're crawling in, and Gordo's like, you know, maybe it's a dead animal, because that happens. Animals go in there giving birth, or if they're injured, and if they can't recover from the injury, they'll just die alone. It happens. It's nature. And so they're looking around and they're trying to find the source of the smell, but they don't see anything from either one of their sides. Like the whole thing looks empty. When at the top of this little cylinder, some dirt ends up caving in and a dead body falls directly in between both of them. Okay, so Gordo was like, holy fuck, what is going on? He's getting ready to vomit. It's all type of stuff. And they crawled in here too, y'all. Like, I would be panicking and freaking out. Like, get me out of here. And in this moment, I'm thinking like, oh my God, this has to be Ernesto, because we already saw what George looks like. But Leaphorn doesn't say anything about the identity of this person, and I feel like he knows who Ernesto is. But like, he knows a lot of people in the town. It's a very small Navajo community, but he don't say nothing. So I'm like, okay, maybe this is not Ernesto, but maybe it's connected to whatever is going on. So Leaphorn tells Gordo like there's something in his mouth and asks him to pull it out. And when he pulls it out, it's like this archaic stone with these etchings and things on there, and there's some flicker of recognition and a huge flicker of fear that goes across Leaphorn's face. So there's that. Dark Winds, season 3, episode 1. Okay, my final thoughts, right? I think Bernie has a right to be suspicious of why her boss doesn't want her to investigate this case. Now, for me, like I said, if you've seen season 1, if you've seen season 2, you know that they've been dealing with crooked cops. So why are you so adamant on her not investigating this as a human trafficking case, and you're just trying to sweep them back into Mexico as if nothing ever happened? So I do feel like their cases are going to overlap, and Bernie is going to find herself working side by side again with, you know, ex-bae, maybe bae Chee, and Leaphorn again. There's just no way that these cases aren't related. But I would be excited to see 2 parallel cases kind of go without crossing over, but driving separate storylines to give Bernie a little bit more individual time too, because I just really like her a lot. So I would love to see Bernie just kind of like working, not necessarily on her own, but the fact that she's with Border Patrol could signal like a spinoff. Maybe, I don't know, because they're working in 2 separate departments. They just so happen to still be on Navajo land. But it'll be a great idea for a spinoff, especially if Bernie stays with Border Patrol this entire time. With Leaphorn, I don't know what happened with this coyote. I don't know what's haunting him. I don't know what's going on, but it just kind of seems like it came out of nowhere, like a bad omen. And I kept rewinding the episode, and I'm like, okay, I missed something. Why is he all of a sudden not sleeping well? Why is he having these hallucinations? Like, what is going on? And other than the coyote, I don't really see too many places in this episode where something could have happened. But then also with all of these things, I'm like, sir, where's your medicine pack? Did we not learn from season 1 when that lady was out here poisoning and destroying y'all? Like, where is your medicine pack? Bernie keeps hers on her at all times, and she learned the hard way to keep his on him at all times. So I'm just kind of like a little bit disappointed in Leaphorn, because you are so familiar with this. Your wife is so familiar with this, and yet you've made yourself vulnerable in a way that you may not be able to get out of. Lastly, I definitely feel like the archaeologist and his associate either kidnapped Ernesto or killed Ernesto. Maybe they found something, and maybe it has something to do with whatever is in the mouth of this dead person, whoever that person is. But I definitely feel like they found something, and there is a cover-up going on, much like we've seen in all of the seasons. But one thing I do love overall about this show is I think like sometimes like cop shows can feel very repetitive. The storylines can kind of feel very familiar, right? And so with Dark Winds, obviously we're working with, you know, spirits, we're working with hexes, we're working with, you know, the lands, and we're also learning about the lands. But like I already said, this is such a unique show to just learn about Navajo and indigenous culture overall. I think people who watch it will gain more of an understanding and more of cultural respect for the lands they inhabit, especially like in the mountainside and in the West Coast. Just understanding and being more respectful of sacred lands, sacred cloths, what quilts means, what certain patterns and stuff mean, like much like African culture and the things that we have with our quilts, everything that they still stitch into theirs also means something. And I also like how they still infuse their practices into the shows too. Like, one of the cool things that I learned in season 1 is when a young girl's period is coming, it's like this whole ceremony with all the women in the village, and they do like this running thing, and then they continue to run farther and farther, and it's her goal to be able to run and to be able to stand strong on her own, but with her entire village behind her and protecting her. So you just get like the history of the braids and the different fabrics, and you know what coming into womanhood is, what coming into manhood is. And with that, I think is what just keeps me coming back to the show, and obviously it keeps other people coming back to the show. I think right now on AMC, currently airing, it is their biggest hit show. The Ones Who Live is not on air anymore. The Walking Dead is over. Yeah, I think it's their biggest hit show on AMC, and I'm pretty sure it's followed by Interview with a Vampire, Pantheon, which is their animated series, and Mayfair Witches. Hopefully we get the show, I cannot remember the name right now, with Giancarlo Esposito, sorry, back. But Dark Winds is standing strong, and we got 2 extra episodes, so I don't know. I just see this going really far, and if we can get that spinoff, y'all, if we can get that spinoff, that will be great. And with that, we're gonna wrap up this episode. As always, like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell, leave comments in the comment box below. Again, if you have people that only listen to audio only, go ahead and share that Spotify link and the Apple Podcast link. You can also find me on Instagram at So There's That Podcast, where I'm posting short form content of different reviews of different shows that you may not hear about on the podcast, as well as upcoming shows across multiple platforms. And you can also find me on Twitter, like I said at the beginning, live tweeting a bunch of different shows and just giving my thoughts and opinions out into the Twitterverse at Chee. And remember, I will be live tweeting this every Sunday. Obviously on Mondays, if I see some stuff and see some responses, I'm gonna be talking to y'all. Because I really need y'all to rock with me for the next 8 weeks on this one, okay? Okay, and with that, I'm gonna catch y'all in the next episode.